Hi there. Today I want to talk to you about a verb that I kept hearing in Toronto at the Dulanda Congresso this summer. I heard some people use it in a way that they really shouldn't be using it. So I'm going to talk about that verb, explain where you would want to use it, and then I'll give you alternatives for what they were trying to do with it. All right? What is that word? I'm talking about the word suggesti, to suggest. It means to suggest. And it sounds like that word in English, but it's not used with the same number of meanings that we have for it in English. In English, if I say, I suggest we go there, what you're really saying is, I propose we do this. I recommend we do this. I'm pushing for us to do this. That's what you're saying there. And it's fine to say, I suggest this, or I have some suggestions, some recommendations for you. That's fine in English, but in Esperanto, it doesn't have as broad of a meaning, or at least, it doesn't right now and shouldn't, because it's nice to have specific words for specific things. In English, it's sort of gotten a little vague and nebulous, and we've lost some of the magic of the older, more formal meaning of suggest. In English, it also means to put one in mind of something, to hypnotically propose something, or like propose it subtly as if like a hypnotic suggestion that you don't even realize that the thought is entering your head when you hear it. That's what it is to suggest. So when you think of Sugesti, you should be picturing the plot of the movie Inception, where they're trying to enter someone's dream and put an idea in their head and get out without them realizing that someone else gave them the idea. So they think it's their own idea. That's how subtle they need to be. Because if I say, don't think about purple elephants, what are you thinking about? You're picturing purple elephants. But you know why, because some guy just told you randomly to not think about them. So you want to be more subtle than that. You want to truly suggest it. You want to be very, very subtle. That is what it means in Esperanto. When you say sugesti, it means you're not coming right out and saying it. You're beating around the bush, or you're not even using words. A painter or a musician might suggest things subtly with the way they compose a piece. You might say, oh yes, the music suggested the meaning of the director there, or the colors in that room sort of put one in mind of a log cabin. That's what it is to use suggesti. Oh yes, tio suggestis ion por mi. It put me in mind of something. All right. That being said, if you raise your hand and say, for our board meeting today, mi suggestas ke unue ni parolu pri citio. All right. Today I'm suggesting that we start our meeting off by talking about that. Well, no, you're not. You came right out and said it. That wasn't subtle. We know who said it. You're being very direct here, and it's not an indirect, it's not a direct thing to suggest. What you really mean to say is, I propose we do this, or I recommend we do this, or we should do this. That's what you should be saying. One of those three options would be a much better fit and not be misusing and pulling a verb away from what it really should be meaning when you say it. So, how do we say those other things? We would say recommendi, to recommend, which many times suggestions are really recommendations. Mi recomendas tiun kafon. I recommend that coffee. Mi proponas ke ni vizitu tiun kafeon. What are you saying there? I propose that we visit that coffee shop. And finally, if you want to say, we should do this, we should do that, just say devus. And that's often enough to state what you're trying to say there. Ni devus fari tion. We should do that. Devus, it's a form of devi. I have other grammar lessons where I talk about all the different forms of devi and all that, but devus is the word for should or ought to. If I think we ought to, then mi pensas ke ni devus, blah, 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 blah. I think that we should, blah, blah, blah. Do that. Don't say mi sugestas ke ni, blah, blah, blah. That is not good. And also, suggesta, suggestive, works in the same way that it does in English, but also Not always in the same way that you might be thinking, and in other ways too. So suggesta means suggestive, but that could mean, oh, yen suggesta poemo. Here's a suggestive poem. There was a young man from Nantucket. Okay, that's suggestive because Nantucket rhymes with other things, and so I'm not coming right out and saying it, but you're already going, uh-oh, is he going to say a bad word because, that rhymes with this and that rhymes with that? Well, that's what makes it suggestive. Like a suggestive photograph. Oh, I think I know what they're alluding to in that photograph. They're not coming right out and showing us something, but I think we all know what we should be thinking about when we look at it. That's suggestive. But I think we use the word suggestive so much in English to mean something sexual or vulgar that we forget that it can have other meanings too, similarly to the word explicit. Explicit content. Well, explicit just means they came right out and said it, whereas implicit would be more of a hint. Explicit is not by definition something sexual, it's just usually explicit nudity is what we often pair it with, explicit this or explicit that. But it could just be, oh yeah, the advertising was very explicit. They told us, buy Coca-Cola. They didn't hint at it. They were very explicit and straightforward. So let's make sure we understand the true meaning there. So suggesta could also mean suggestive as in leading the witness. Like a lawyer might have a suggesta demando. You saw him speeding last night as you were walking home, right? Okay, well, you're really pushing me to say that he was speeding there. You're not asking, now, did you notice how fast he was going? That would be a neutral question, but a suggesta demando, that would be saying something like, do you still cheat on tests? Well, no, but wait, if I say yes or if I say no, it'll sound like I'm admitting to cheating on tests. Those sort of things where I'm putting something in your head or I'm putting something in the head of those listening and sort of manipulating the situation with that suggestion, almost like a hypnotic suggestion that I'm making you think of something. And you might not even realize that I'm maybe laying a trap there. So suggesta could have both a vulgar, crass, sexual meaning, but it could also have more of a manipulative, multi-layered meaning without it necessarily being in that first category. So suggesta, good word to know, but you shouldn't be saying suggestoin as if saying, oh, here's a list of places that the guy told me we should check out. Those are recommendoi, those are not suggestoi. Okay, so yeah. I know it's tough sometimes when you're learning a new language to branch out and step away from the words that look similar to what you're familiar with. Sometimes it's common for us to grab onto the nearest word we recognize and hold onto it for dear life. And for example, if I want to say that I like something in Esperanto, I'm an English speaker. That's, I'm a native English speaker. So I might be inclined to just say, mi ŝatas la kafon. I like the coffee. But it's important for me to be able to say and to sometimes get used to saying, plaĉas al mi la kafo. Pleasing to me is the coffee. That is not very English-like, but that's very good Esperanto to use, and you should be able to use those two interchangeably, and I shouldn't only ever catch you saying, oh, you like this, you like that, simply because it's closer to English. So that's why I especially want to say, hey, use proponi, which means to propose, because we don't use it very much in English. If I say, oh, proposal, you're thinking of what? Probably a marriage proposal, because that's like the only time we use the word propose is, oh, he proposed last night. Well, we know that you mean marriage. We don't have to say, proposed what, a new restaurant? You know what they mean because it's such a rare thing in English. But we need to remember that in Esperanto, proponi is a very common verb, which you're going to hear a lot, and which you yourself should be using more frequently. Instead of bending over backwards to avoid it because it's not familiar compared to recommendi. Look, Alex, I promise I'll stop saying suggesti, but I'm only ever going to use recomendi now because I can understand that that looks like recommend and that looks like suggest, and I'll do that. Okay, better to use recommend for what you're doing instead of suggest, but it's even better to also use proponi more frequently. So that would be my other advice to you, is stop saying suggesti and do start saying proponi, but you can use devus or recomendi in the middle if you need to, either way. So yeah, those are my thoughts there. Yeah, let me know. What do you think? Is there a word that, if you were in Toronto, did you hear certain words that were new to you, certain turns of phrases that you thought, oh, I'm going to have to remember to use that, or I think someone's saying that word inappropriately. Let's not embarrass anyone and name names, but I'm curious if you've noticed some either fun phrasings or some weird phrasings that you're pretty sure are wrong. Let me know in the comment section. That might inspire another grammar lesson. This came about because I kept noticing various people saying something incorrectly, so let me know, and let's see what we come up with and talk about next. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a wonderful day. Patrons, thank you so much for your support in making these videos and for helping people explore Esperanto.